Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Nicole Fuller. As Kathy mentioned, I'm a registered dietitian nutritionist. I've been working in the field of nutrition for over 20 years now. It's hard to believe that. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. I know things are a little bit different for many of us this school year. You might not even have to send your kids with a school lunch necessarily. You might be just making the lunches at home. The good thing about this topic is that you can pretty much translate everything we discuss from the school lunches to home lunches instead. So even though it's primarily about school lunches, know that you can just make these at home just as easily. Having 3 kids myself, I know it's hard to come up with ideas about what to send for school lunch, so I was happy to touch on this subject. Um, so sending your child to school with a healthy school lunch shouldn't be the most stressful part of our day, you know? We're busy parents. I get it. Boy, do I get it with 3 boys. Tonight, I'm not only going to go over recipe ideas for lunch, but I'm going to go over some basic lunch tips, like how to get the kids involved and why lunch is such an important and often overlooked meals for our kids. Let's see. Trying to get to the next slide. Sorry about that. Before we get, so this is the overview of tonight's presentation. We're going to talk about basic tips, why lunch is important, and then get into some actual lunch ideas. Before we get talking about the recipe ideas and tips about lunch, I do want to talk about nutrition for a minute and why giving our kids healthy lunches is important. Like I said, it is a very overlooked meal. People talk about how breakfast is the most important meal of the day, but lunch is up there too. There are studies that have shown that nutrition affects the way our kids think, it affects their behavior, and it can affect their health, all of which have an impact on their academic performance. There was a study done on 5th grade students whose diets were less than nutritious, and these students were found to do worse on standardized literary tests. Another study of 5th grade students who ate more fast food than their counterparts did worse on math and reading scores. Nutrition does, in fact, impact school performance, which I think we all kind of knew. We do often hear people say, like I said, breakfast is the most important meal of the day, but lunch is critical for our kids when it comes to their health and how they perform in school. If you think about it, if our kids were to skip lunch, they may have trouble concentrating. They are also missing out on getting enough energy and key nutrients they need. If you think about it like this, kids can eat up to a third or more of their daily calories at school, okay? So that's a huge chunk of calories. If they're skipping that meal or if their meal is less than nutritious, you can imagine how that will affect their energy levels, their nutrient stores. Okay, so lunch should not be overlooked. Okay. It should be said that packing a lunch doesn't always translate into a healthier lunch. Like if you're packing chips, cookies, juice, the kids might jump for joy and be excited about it, but it's not necessarily nutritious. So packing a lunch doesn't always mean nutritious. And it's those kind of foods would also not be the kind of food we'd want to be fueling our kids for school. So why pack a lunch in the first place? One good reason is because it's an opportunity to teach your children about nutrition, why it is important. This is where I would also recommend getting your kids involved in the process. At times it may depend on the age of the child, but I feel like the earlier the better. I know that sometimes it is easier to do things ourselves. Believe me, I get it as a parent. Sometimes it's just easier, it goes faster, there aren't any arguments or big discussions. But when the kids are involved with the planning, preparing, and packing their lunches, when they're involved with all that, they are more likely to eat the lunch, okay? Because they feel like they've been a part of the process. I'm not just saying to let them go ahead, take control, pick whatever it is they want, but getting them involved in the process, whether you're sending the school to lunch with them or they're making the lunch at home, you get to teach them about foods, the different food groups, and how to choose wisely. Doing this while they are young can impact their behaviors and their food choices for their entire lives. So you're setting them up for success as you get the earlier they get involved. Like I said before, I get it. It's easier to do it by ourselves most of the time. It goes faster, no discussions, no debates. But by bringing your child into the process, it does give you another chance to connect with them, involve them in deciding what to make for lunch together. Go ahead and let them help you create a weekly lunch menu, make a shopping list together, or if you want, even bring them shopping with you to see, where things are laid out in the grocery store. If they're old enough, go ahead and let them help you prepare the lunch even. I mentioned arguments a minute ago. I do realize getting your kids involved may cause some of those. So ahead of time, maybe work on some compromises. For instance, when it comes to vegetables, I know that's a item that kids struggle with or that parents struggle with getting their kids to eat, but make a list together of the ones that they will eat and write it down. Like the vegetables I will eat in my lunch are X, Y, and Z. Agree on what goes into the lunch together, from the proteins, the fruit, the vegetables, the grains, etc. Then take what you've agreed upon, the agreed upon foods, and come up with a plan for the following week, whether it be the menu or the grocery list, however you decide to do it. Okay. Now we know lunch is important and getting the kids involved is a good idea. Let's find out what we are going to put in our lunches. I want to talk about how to pack healthy school lunches by just reviewing some of the basic things, trying to pick from each food group. That means a protein, a grain, fruit, a vegetable, calcium-rich dairy product. Kids, you can get them involved by going through each food group and, seeing what they know. What is a protein? Maybe they could tell you, and then create a list based on the food groups listed and what they would eat from those food groups. Choose fruits and vegetables. I'm going to take some time and talk about fruits and vegetables, specifically because it can be hard to incorporate them into lunches. Maybe not so much fruit, but definitely the vegetables. And this is a great opportunity to add some vegetables to their diet. Fruits and vegetables are packed with vitamins, minerals, fiber, phytonutrients. You can explain to your kids they should eat the rainbow, like the rainbow of colors. That might get them also excited about eating fruits and vegetables. So getting them to eat their vegetables is hard, but there are definitely some tricks you can do to work around it, to getting them to, open up to the idea of having them in the lunchbox. If your child is more like, kids love dips, to dip their food into things. So if your child is more likely to eat vegetables with a dip, go ahead and send the dip along. You start with the vegetables that they're eating, whether it's baby carrots or carrots cut up into strips, or cucumbers, sweet peppers, broccoli, cucumbers, celery, anything that you want, and then pick the dips that they would choose. Hummus. Some of these dips you might not even think about kids eating, but the earlier you start, the more likely they are to try it. Hummus, guacamole, nut butters, I know some schools you can't do peanut butter, so any of the nut butters, reduced fat salad dressings, ranch is a popular one, salsa. Some kids might even like to dip their vegetables in mustard. So anything that will get them to eat the vegetable. Sometimes you have to think outside the box, spruce up the vegetables a little bit by cutting them into fun shapes, making veggie kebabs, or just adding them to a sandwich, whether it's some spinach or something like that. Fruit, like I said, it might be a little bit easier to get them to eat that. But if you're having trouble, something you could do is fruit kebabs, just like the vegetable kebabs. You could buy the skewers. Usually they sell them at grocery stores. I would recommend cutting off the pointy tips if you're sending it to school, or you can even use lollipop sticks. Most fruits you can use, I wouldn't recommend all like bananas or apples, but melon, the things that work, melon, grapes, blueberries, pineapple, kiwi, raspberries. They're colorful, it's fun, the fruit kebabs. You can also add a dip for the fruit as well. If you do vanilla yogurt, that's also a good way to get some calcium in the diet. Some children might like dipping their fruit in some kind of nut butter. A lot of people like apples with nut butter. So that could work too. If you're in a time crunch, I'm definitely not opposed to sending unsweetened applesauce in a container, or even packaged fruit if it's packed in their own fruit juice. Why not? Or even some of the freeze-dried fruits would work if your kids will eat that. Another thing to keep in mind with fruits and vegetables is to prepare them before the week starts. Some can be prepared ahead of time. By this, I'm depending on the type of fruit and vegetable, cut them, peel them, whatever you can do to make it easier for you and for your child if they're making their own lunches, to pack it together either the night before or the morning of. Whatever it is that will make it easier is sometimes the key to everything. So what else about the basics? Packing a protein. So protein is essential. Children need it. It's an important building block for muscles, bones, skin. Proteins also make enzymes and hormones. So we definitely want to add this. Protein doesn't have to, you don't just have to think about meats. Let's think outside the box a little bit. So it doesn't just have to be lunch meat. Hard-boiled eggs, or even like an egg salad, fish like tuna fish, nuts, nut butters, beans, seeds, all of these have protein in them. And whole grains. So I mentioned grains earlier, but we should really try and focus more on whole grains. Grains would be things like bread, cereal, rice, pasta, quinoa, pita, crackers, bagels. For your child's lunch, I would try and choose 100% whole wheat or whole grain. Again, tortillas, wraps are also part of whole grains. I would try and avoid the white breads and white flour because they are stripped of their fiber and nutrients, which are so important. So that's why I'm focusing more on the whole grains. And if you're ever unsure if what you're buying is actually whole grain, I would just recommend reading the ingredient list and make sure it says whole wheat or whole grain instead of white flour. Now dairy, don't forget about the dairy. Kids need the calcium and vitamin D for bones and teeth. When we think of dairy, milk, cheese, yogurt, if your child can't tolerate dairy, or you can absolutely use a milk or alternative or substitute. I would just make sure that the alternative or substitute is fortified with calcium and vitamin D. And try and avoid packaged goods if possible. And I know as a parent myself, it's hard to always do this, but the packaged goods usually are made with refined white flours. They have added sugars, usually added salts, and have the trans-saturated fats, all of which aren't really good for growing children. So, I mean, when in a pinch, throw in some goldfish, but I would recommend trying to avoid if you can. Okay. Now, what do we do with all this information? How can we pull this all together? Excuse me. To create healthy lunches, I just wanted to give you some ideas of what you can do. You could take some of these ideas and build upon them and create them and make them your own. First, you would have to think about containers. Like, what containers do you have from home that you could build these lunches? A lot of these things you could find on Amazon, or if you go to Target or Walmart or even any of those websites, you can get the containers with that are separated, so you could put many things in one. Or if you just have small Tupperware at home, you could use those, whatever works. The first lunch idea is like a deli snack box. It's kind of like a homemade Lunchable. You can be creative. You could swap out the ingredients. It's very versatile. We don't have to just think sandwich for lunch. And kids, let's be honest, they love Lunchables. So get them involved in this. They could pick, they're the lunch meat of choice. Turkey, for instance, turkey, hard-boiled eggs, some cherry tomatoes, either the cube cheese or a cheese stick instead, a couple tablespoons of almonds, and some whole grain crackers. And you've got the basics right there in a box. Another way you can do this, you can swap out some of the cheese and do yogurt instead, or yogurt stick, or a small container of yogurt. Do strawberries, turkey, roast beef, ham, some whole grain pretzels, and some celery sticks. And it's like transformed the meal already, but you're kind of going with the same basic idea of a deli snack box. Okay. Another idea would be the Bistro Box. It's kind of similar to the other one because it's very versatile. You can be creative. You can swap out things. And here, this is like one of the containers I was talking about. This is separated into 3 separate parts. Like I said, you can get these type of things on Amazon or regular store. You would do something like hard-boiled eggs. Here we have carrot sticks. You could do celery sticks or zucchini sticks. Do some nut butter or hummus as a dip for the vegetables. Some whole wheat crackers and cheese slices. You could really be creative here. You could do a half of a pita if you have a large whole grain pita or whole wheat pita instead of crackers. You could do that. You could do the freeze-dried fruit, which is shown in this picture here, which is another great idea if you don't have any fresh fruit at home, because it definitely lasts long. Another idea is a pizza lunchbox. So there is actually a Lunchable that's sort of like this if your kids like pizza. And this I might send for a child that's a little older, because they kind of have to build this all on their own and it could get messy. But if you just get a whole grain English muffin, send in a small container of pizza sauce or spaghetti sauce, whatever works. Add some shredded mozzarella cheese or even any other kind of shredded cheese if they prefer. Applegate Farms makes a great turkey pepperoni. Or if they regular pepperoni, you could do that. And then for the vegetable, you can add on some green pepper. Doesn't have to be green pepper. It could be red pepper, yellow pepper, orange pepper, whatever you prefer. This is just to give you an idea. That's what's good about these, is you can build upon the idea and make it your own. If they don't want to put a vegetable on their pizza Lunchable, you can send strawberries or apple slices or clementine or a halo, the mini oranges. It's buildable. It's very versatile. Other lunch ideas, cracker sandwiches. If you don't have any, I recommend, if you are that creative, getting those little cutouts, the small cookie cutters, so you can create different sizes or shapes of cheeses and lunch meats. The picture that's shown there, I actually got off of Amazon. So, and they're not that expensive, so you can get creative. For the cracker sandwiches, you could send in some cheese, cut them into shapes, whole wheat crackers, cucumber chips, that they could either put on their sandwich or use as a dip, some light ranch dressing or hummus, or guacamole, whatever your child will eat. This has a small clementine with it and some nuts here. So you could see that this is a perfect box. We've got the dairy with the cheese, the crackers for the grain, the cashews as the protein, which is the nut, the clementine, and the cucumber chips. And bonus, this you can even send in some goldfish once in a while. So this is also buildable. You can change up the lunch meat. You don't have to send lunch meat. You can just send cheese, whatever your child will eat or like. This is just a way to get those basics into the lunch. Another great idea, if you make pasta and you have leftover noodles and you don't know what to do with it, whip together, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be, a 5-star meal. Try and use whole grain pasta or whole wheat pasta. Add in some chickpeas or kidney beans, whatever beans you have around. You can even mix in some tuna if your child will eat tuna. For the dressing, you could do basic olive oil and seasoning for the dressing, or mix it with ranch dressing. Added some vegetables, cut up some cucumbers or peppers, whatever you think your child will like. But it's a great way for use of leftovers, for leftover pasta. And you can even, if your child likes cheese, you could do the small mozzarella balls that they have, or little pieces of cheddar cheese, whichever your child will like. Another lunch idea would be a salad, like a tuna salad, egg salad, chicken salad, whatever your child might like. You can make it a little healthier by doing half Greek yogurt and half mayonnaise as the combiner, and also adding vegetables to the salad. Doing for a little crunch or a little bite. You could even do nuts or seeds adding to it. Apple slices or little apple pieces in the salad to make it a little sweet. These are all ways to try and incorporate fruits and vegetables into their lunches, and you'll also be getting the protein with the tuna, the egg, or the chicken salad. And you can send crackers for them to dip it in if they would like, or send in a whole grain English muffin. Do some either fruit and vegetables on the side if they're not getting it in the salad. You can be creative. Again, it's all about being creative and thinking about things your child will eat and how to incorporate it into the lunch. Peanut butter and sushi, peanut butter and banana sushi rolls. It's a kind of a spin on a regular peanut butter and jelly sandwich, but if you've never tried peanut butter and banana, don't knock it until you try it. You could take a whole grain tortilla, spread a thin layer of peanut butter or nut butter of your choice, depending on if your child can have peanut butter at school. Slice up some bananas, layer it on the peanut butter, roll it up, and cut it up into little sushi rolls. It will taste great. You can send on the side some veggie kebabs like are shown here. You could either cut the vegetables into shapes, or if you don't have any vegetable cutters or you don't have the time, that's fine too. You could do a side of baby carrots with some dip. And if your child doesn't like dip, that's fine too. These are just ideas on how to add it all together. But those are really good and a big hit at my house. Other lunch ideas. Last but not least, don't be shy about sending leftovers to school. If you know your child ate the dinner the night before, they'll likely eat it at lunch. And you could do leftovers if it's warm. You can get an insulated lunchbox to keep the lunch warm, or you can get a thermos to keep it warm as well. If you're making a soup and you know your child will eat the soup, heat it up and send it in a thermos. Go ahead and send it in. When in doubt, these are just some basic ideas I wanted to give you to incorporate the basics into a child's lunch. But if you're ever unsure, just keep the basics in mind. And when I'm talking about the basics, I'm talking about a protein, a whole grain, fruit, vegetable, and dairy. And again, if your child can't do dairy, substitute is fine. You know, they have almond yogurt, soy yogurt, coconut yogurt, and other dairy alternatives. But when in doubt, if you're not sure what to send, stick with the basics. And as a parent of 3, I know how hard it is to think about getting the children involved, but you'll find by getting them involved, it will get easier as time goes on, and they will be more likely to eat the lunch knowing that they've put a hand in it. So I really hope you enjoyed this presentation, and hopefully in 2021 we can do more of these in person. There are really so many ideas out there for healthy lunches for kids. These were just a few. The ones that I've shared are very versatile, so I wanted to make it easier that way by showing things where you can swap things, that your child will like. The main takeaway is sticking to the basics. I really appreciate you joining me. Thank you so much.